TPL stands for Texas Pacific Land Corporation.
We are one of the largest landowners in the nation, and especially in the state of Texas.
We own right around 1 million acres of surface. We span from just west of Abilene to El Paso. We joke around the office that we're the oldest startup, that anyone's ever heard of. In the 1870s, the Texas Pacific Railway was granted a certain amount of acreage for every mile of track they were able to lay. That was the original land grant that was transferred to the trust. It's been traded on the NYSE since 1888.
Not too long ago. We were an old school typewriter-based operation, but we have definitely pulled TPL into the future.
The new game started 7 years ago, but we're just getting started.
We're not just a mineral company. We're not a water services company. We're not just a landowner. We're all of the above.
We took a look at what does the industry need to be developed at scale, and then how do we apply our assets to support those needs while creating value for our shareholders.
We have scientists, we have engineers, we have lawyers, we have professional landmen. We have a great group.
We've got a mineral management team that looks after our mineral and royalty interests. We've got a team that's devoted specifically to the SLIM business, which is our surface leases, easements, and material sales. We've got a water team that's devoted strictly to water management. We've got a next-gen team that's devoted to next-gen opportunities like solar and wind and hydrogen and Bitcoin mining.
Texas Pacific as a whole is not just looking forward, we're running forward.
The Permian Basin is one of the largest oil and gas deposits in North America. From a production standpoint, it would be in the top 10 as far as its production if you were to compare it to like the OPEC nations. So the returns available for people who come in and drill it are some of the best economic returns in the world.
If you look back at how this thing was managed before what we call active management, we probably had something like 100 horizontal wells on our properties. Today, there's thousands of horizontal wells on our properties. If you look at our top operators today, it's people like Chevron and Occidental and ConocoPhillips, Devon and EOG. So it's the big boys of the business that all want to be in the Permian.
We are involved in every aspect of the drilling and development process.
We exploit every revenue stream possible by owning the surface asset. When you have an oil and gas developer come to the surface, they are going to build a small town at the location of the wellbore.
We're involved getting an access easement into the well. We're usually selling the caliche material that's required to build those roads and well pads. We're involved in infrastructure planning, routing, well location. And as that progresses and the rigs moved in, we're selling water for drilling operations and then source water for completions operations. And once that production's brought online, that's the point where we're starting to close in on getting that royalty payment.
What's been a really successful strategy for TPL is to be a solution provider for the operators. What are your biggest issues? There's a really good chance we can solve them.
The operators start to look at us as a partner, whereas historically it was kind of combative between landowner and operator. Now we're working together and we're collaborating. We're providing solutions to them up front.
We become that full service solution.
We're not having to go to multiple landowners to negotiate multiple contracts. It's just one process of negotiation, then it's rinse and repeat for them. So that brings a lot of efficiencies to the developers.
When you think about, all the different aspects that we're involved in through the life cycle of a well, it creates a lot of value for our shareholders, but also the shareholders of our clients.
In the early days, one of the big issues for the Permian is where a lot of the good rock was to drill was out in the middle of the desert. So that means there's no water there.
Water is the major component in unconventional development.
For one well, it's going to take anywhere from 350 to 750,000 barrels to develop the well.
Texas Pacific Water was born in 2017.
That's when our revenue started to really soar.
We started drilling brackish water wells, bringing that water to surface, storing it in above ground pits, and then connecting those pits with pipelines all over the basin.
We've put in what is probably the largest source water system in the Permian Basin, and we move that water up to 70 miles out to the development areas.
We build a municipal water system literally every week for oil and gas. That's what it is.
At the water company, we've operated in two different segments. We've got source water that we are pumping out of the ground and selling to operators for drilling and completions operations. On the produced water side of the business, it's a little different. Produced water is water that is naturally occurring in the formations that are being completed. As you complete a well, water is coming out of the formation with the oil and gas.
Essentially, these are water wells that make a little bit of oil. They produce a tremendous amount of water, and that water has to have a use that either is recycling or it's going to go to disposal.
We have takeaway agreements in place with different water midstream companies. We then derive the revenue from produced water streams as that water is going to recycle or disposal.
Water for so long has been historically viewed as a waste product of oil and gas. I think it's important to consider water as a valuable resource.
We started recycling in 2018.
We put a heavy focus on recycle, not letting that water that comes back up go to waste. There's a lot of chemistry that goes into it. Every operator has their secret recipe. We work with the operator to design what their frac chemistries need to look like. And then we design a treatment program to fit that operator's development program. We continue to recycle that water again and again. So you're seeing water that sometimes is on its 20th, 30th cycle.
So we get a water well, we get a disposal well, and then we get a recycle barrel. So we can actually charge 3 different times on 3 different types of fluid.
In the past, water was a rounding error of top line revenue to TP. If you look at it now, we stay in that 30 to 35% of total revenue. Water's growth in the whole story of Texas Pacific has been an astounding story.
The formation of that water company has been a fantastic investment. We've created a ton of value for our shareholders. Cumulatively, we've invested just over $140 million in capital into that business, and it's generated multiples of that in free cash flow. Not only did we solve a big problem for the industry, we opened up a lot of acreage that I don't think would have been otherwise developed.
You've lowered that break even for an operator, and now you've opened up an area for development that wasn't economic before.
When you provide solutions, when you make it easy for people to go drill somewhere, especially when that somewhere happens to be our land, everybody wins.
When I first started at TPL, I used to have people call me and they would say, "Hey, I'm at the red gate." I'd be like, "Man, we own 1 million acres. Like, what red gate?"
When that land was granted back in the late 1800s, it was granted in a checkerboard fashion. And so that nearly 1 million acres spans several million acres.
All day I live in our map, and I'm so used to seeing that checkerboarded acreage, but then you come out here to the fields and you sit in a car and you drive just one section and you realize how big it is.
There are thousands of wells that we own an interest in that have to be monitored on a continual basis. And every single year, there are hundreds of new wells that get added.
There's hundreds of different vendors and people involved with drilling and completing a well. And so all of those people are accessing our property and doing different things.
From our perspective on the land team, we're dealing with roughly 800 contracts a year, and that doesn't include the ones that don't go through. That's the ones that we actually paper up.
We own different interests in each one of those wells. So once that well comes on and you're getting that production, you've got to make sure that you're getting paid correctly.
Keeping track of that with a small employee base requires a tremendous amount of technology.
I joined the company in September of 2011, and at that time, they were actually still using typewriters, oilskin maps.
The term mailbox was used a lot, but Texas Pacific was a mailbox, so we just collected the checks that came to the door.
A little behind the times, maybe 20 or 30 years as far as technology and data management. Once we started to see a ramp in activity, we started building out customized data management systems. There wasn't really anything on the market, and so we just kind of had to build our own. We use drones to fly the properties, aerial photography, satellite imagery, change detection software.
That information and well data is essential to our jobs. It's just incredible to see how much volume we deal with on a daily basis and how little slips through the cracks.
We actually have a very small employee base when you consider the size of TPL and the amount of revenue that TPL does.
I don't think there's any company out there selling and delivering as much product as we are with as few people as we are.
Every single major oil and gas company has our personal phone numbers. The fact that so few people manage this, we're working hard.
TPL has existed for over 100 years, and I think the way that we try to think about it is how do we set this company up for the next 100 years?
We're thinking about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decades from now, where does TPL's revenue come from? There will still be oil and gas development, but we also every day are looking at different ways to create more value from the assets that we own.
Technology is changing every day, and with our land position and our water position, it puts us in a really good place to get involved with these technologies.
Solar, and wind, and hydrogen, Bitcoin mining, and other uses alternative to oil and gas.
We want to be at the forefront of all the energy transitions. We have several hundred megawatts that are actually contracted and in the development phase, so we're excited to see where those projects go.
We probably get a call a week on some new idea. You know, there are things that are coming that is different than anybody's ever heard of.
A lot of the things that we're doing on some of like the renewable front, I think are some of the things that over the long term will allow TPL to continue to be a very successful company for decades to come.
The formation of NextGen and the research that we've participated in and performed and funded, I think is going to put Texas Pacific in a really great place.
What we've done has created opportunity for a future generation of TPL.
The team we have in place is really focused on ensuring that this company continues to make money and be around for a very, very long time.
The future is brighter than it's ever been on where we take this from here.
I think there's a lot more opportunities, and this thing will continue to thrive into the future.
We really are in the early innings of what this company could look like. If you look at TPL today versus 30 years ago or even 10 years ago, it looks a lot different, but so does this industry. We've evolved with the industry, and I think we'll continue to get more efficient in the way we manage these types of assets. I think we'll continue to find new uses for these assets to be able to capture the full value that our shareholders deserve.